The waitress who got fired for doing the right thing, later took over as manager. Maria Santos wiped down the same table for the third time, her hands trembling slightly as she watched the clock on the wall tick past midnight. The Golden Spoon diner was nearly empty, except for a few late-night customers nursing their coffee and the occasional trucker stopping for a quick meal. She had been working double shifts for 2 weeks straight, trying to save enough money to pay for her daughter's school supplies and keep their small apartment. At 28 years old, Maria had been waiting tables at the Golden Spoon for almost 3 years. It wasn't her dream job, but it paid the bills and allowed her to spend time with her 8-year-old daughter, Sophia, during the day. The diner was located on the outskirts of town, where the highway met the old industrial district. Most of the customers were regular working folks, construction workers, and long-haul drivers who appreciated Maria's warm smile and efficient service. The owner, Frank Patterson, was a heavy-set man in his 50s who had inherited the diner from his father. Frank was known for cutting corners wherever possible. He often served food that was close to its expiration date, refused to fix broken equipment until it completely stopped working, and had a reputation for being tough on his employees. Despite these issues, Maria needed the job desperately, especially since her ex-husband had stopped sending child support payments 6 months ago. That particular Tuesday night started like any other. Maria was working the late shift with her coworker Jenny, a college student who worked part-time to pay for her textbooks. The kitchen was staffed by Carlos, an experienced cook who had been with the diner for over a decade, and Tommy, a teenage dishwasher who was saving money for a car. Around 11:30 p.m., a family walked into the diner. Maria immediately noticed something was off about them. The father, a tall man with worried eyes, carried a sleeping toddler in his arms. The mother looked exhausted and was holding the hand of a boy who appeared to be about 6 years old. Their clothes were wrinkled and dusty, and they had the look of people who had been traveling for a long time. As Maria approached their table with menus, she could hear the parents whispering in Spanish. She understood enough to catch fragments of their conversation. They were discussing how much money they had left and whether they could afford to order food for all 4 of them. The mother was suggesting they only order something for the children, while the parents would just drink water. The father ordered 2 small meals for the children and asked for 2 glasses of water for him and his wife. Maria's heart went out to them. She had been in similar situations herself, counting every dollar and wondering how to stretch it until the next payday. She knew the feeling of being hungry, but making sure your children ate first. While Carlos prepared the children's meals, Maria noticed the family looking longingly at the dessert display case near the front counter. The little boy pressed his face against the glass, pointing at a chocolate cake slice. His mother gently pulled him away, explaining in Spanish that they couldn't afford it right now. When Maria brought the food to their table, she made a decision that would change her life forever. She quietly placed an extra plate of food in front of the mother and whispered that it was on the house. The woman's eyes filled with tears as she tried to refuse, but Maria insisted. She also brought over 2 slices of chocolate cake for the children, telling them it was a special treat from the diner. The family ate gratefully, and Maria could see the relief in the parents' faces as they finally had a proper meal. They stayed for about an hour. And when they left, the father pressed a $5 tip into Maria's hand. Even though she knew it was probably money they couldn't spare, the mother hugged her and whispered, "Gracias, angel," before they disappeared into the night. Maria felt good about what she had done, but she knew she had to be careful. Frank was very strict about giving away free food, and she had seen him fire employees for smaller infractions. She decided not to mention the incident to anyone and planned to pay for the extra meals out of her own pocket when she calculated her tips at the end of the shift. However, her plan fell apart the next morning when Frank arrived early to do inventory. He noticed discrepancies in the food count and began questioning the night shift workers. Carlos and Tommy claimed they didn't know anything about missing food, which left Maria and Jenny as the prime suspects. Frank called Maria into his small, cluttered office behind the kitchen. The walls were covered with old newspaper clippings about the diner and photos of Frank with various local politicians. His desk was piled high with invoices, receipts, and employee schedules. He sat behind the desk with his arms crossed, his face red with anger. "I know someone gave away food last night," Frank said, his voice cold and accusing. "The inventory doesn't match the sales receipts. Either you tell me what happened, or I'm going to have to let both you and Jenny go." Maria's stomach dropped. She couldn't let Jenny get fired for something she didn't do, especially when the young woman was working so hard to pay for her education. Taking a deep breath, Maria decided to tell the truth. She explained about the family, how they seemed desperate and hungry, and how she had given them extra food because it was the right thing to do. Frank listened to her story with a stony expression. When she finished, he shook his head and stood up from his chair. "Maria, I've told everyone 100 times that we don't give away free food. This is a business, not a charity. That family you helped probably had more money than they let on. You got played, and it cost me money." Maria tried to explain that she was willing to pay for the food herself, but Frank cut her off. "That's not the point," he said. "The point is that you violated company policy. You stole from me, plain and simple. I can't have employees who think they can make decisions about giving away my inventory." Despite Maria's pleas and offers to work extra shifts to make up for the cost, Frank was unmoved. He told her to clean out her locker and leave immediately. Jenny, who had been waiting anxiously outside the office, burst into tears when she learned what had happened. Even Carlos, who rarely showed emotion, shook his head in disgust at Frank's decision. As Maria gathered her belongings from the employee break room, she felt a mixture of sadness and anger. She was angry at Frank for being so heartless, but she wasn't sorry for what she had done. She knew that helping that family had been the right choice, even if it cost her job. The news of Maria's firing spread quickly through the diner. Many of the regular customers who knew and liked her were outraged when they learned what had happened. Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman who came in every Tuesday for coffee and pie, confronted Frank directly about his decision. "That girl has been nothing but kind and hardworking," she told him. "You're making a terrible mistake." But Frank refused to change his mind. He hired a replacement waitress within a week, a younger woman named Tiffany, who had no previous restaurant experience. The transition was rocky, and many customers began complaining about the slower service and mistakes with their orders. Meanwhile, Maria was struggling to find new employment. Word of her firing had spread throughout the small restaurant community, and many potential employers were hesitant to hire someone who had been terminated for giving away free food. Regardless of the circumstances, her savings were depleting rapidly, and she was facing the possibility of falling behind on rent. 3 weeks after losing her job, Maria was at the grocery store with Sophia when they ran into the family from that night at the diner. The father recognized her immediately and approached with a huge smile. In broken English mixed with Spanish, he explained that they had been traveling to a new city where he had found construction work. They had been on the road for 2 days with very little money when they stopped at the Golden Spoon. The man introduced himself as Roberto, and his wife was Carmen. Their children were Miguel and little Ana. Roberto explained that Maria's kindness had given them the strength to continue their journey, and that he had started his new job the following week. He was earning good money now, and was able to provide for his family properly. Carmen, through tears, told Maria that she would never forget her kindness during their darkest moment. She said that Maria was an angel who had restored their faith in humanity when they needed it most. Roberto pressed a $50 bill into Maria's hand, insisting it was small payment for what she had done for them. As they parted ways, Sophia looked up at her mother with pride. "Mama, you helped them when they were hungry," she said. That was really nice. Maria realized that even though she had lost her job, she had gained something more valuable: the knowledge that she had made a real difference in someone's life, and the respect of her daughter. That evening, as Maria tucked Sophia into bed, she reflected on the events of the past month. She was still unemployed and worried about their financial situation, but she felt a sense of peace about her decision. She had acted according to her values, and while it had cost her dearly in the short term, she believed that good things would eventually come from doing the right thing. Little did she know that her act of kindness would soon come back to help her in ways she never could have imagined. The story of the waitress who got fired for helping a hungry family was just beginning, and the next chapter would bring unexpected opportunities and the chance for justice to prevail. Number: The waitress who got fired for doing the right thing later took over as manager. 6 weeks had passed since Maria lost her job at the Golden Spoon Diner, and despite applying to dozens of restaurants and cafes in the area, she still hadn't found steady employment. She had picked up a few shifts at a catering company and occasionally helped her neighbor Mrs. Garcia clean offices on weekends. But it wasn't enough to cover all her expenses. The stress was beginning to show on her face, and Sophia had started asking fewer questions about when Mama would get a new job. One Thursday afternoon, while Maria was dropping off another job application at a pizza place downtown, she bumped into Detective Sarah Martinez, a regular customer from the Golden Spoon who always ordered the same thing: black coffee and a grilled cheese sandwich. Sarah had been eating at the diner for years as part of her patrol route and had always appreciated Maria's friendly service and attention to detail. "Maria," Sarah exclaimed with genuine surprise and concern, "I haven't seen you at the Spoon lately. Everything okay?" Maria hesitated for a moment, then decided to tell Sarah the truth about what had happened. As she recounted the story of the hungry family and Frank's decision to fire her, she watched Sarah's expression change from surprise to anger. "That's absolutely ridiculous," Sarah said, shaking her head. "I've been going to that place for 5 years, and you were the best waitress they had. Frank Patterson has always been a cheap bastard, but this takes it to a new level." Sarah then shared something that made Maria's stomach turn. Over the past month, she had heard rumors from other officers who frequented the diner that Frank was cutting even more corners than usual. There were whispers about food safety violations, employees being forced to work off the clock, and suspicious changes to time cards. Some of the newer staff members had been asking questions about their rights, but Frank had been intimidating them into silence. "You know what, Maria?" Sarah said, pulling out her business card. "I think you dodged a bullet getting out of there when you did, but what Frank did to you was wrong. And I have a feeling his chickens are going to come home to roost soon enough." The conversation gave Maria hope, but also made her worry about Jenny and the other employees who were still working under Frank's increasingly harsh management. She had heard through the grapevine that Tiffany, the new waitress, had already quit after just 3 weeks, unable to handle the pressure and Frank's constant criticism. Meanwhile, the Golden Spoon was experiencing problems that Frank couldn't ignore. Customer complaints had increased dramatically since Maria left. The service was slower, orders were frequently mixed up, and the overall atmosphere had become unpleasant. Several longtime customers had stopped coming altogether, and the diner's reputation in the community was suffering. Jenny, who was now the most experienced waitress on staff, was overwhelmed trying to train new employees while handling her full course load at college. Carlos was becoming increasingly frustrated with the high turnover rate and the pressure to prepare food faster, with less quality ingredients. Even loyal customers, like Mrs. Henderson, had started making comments about how much better things were when Maria worked there. One evening in late October, Maria received an unexpected phone call that would change everything. The caller introduced herself as Linda Walsh, the regional manager for a national restaurant chain called Family Table. Linda explained that she had heard about Maria's situation through a mutual acquaintance and was interested in meeting with her about a potential opportunity. The next day, Maria dressed in her best interview outfit and met Linda at a coffee shop downtown. Linda was a professional woman in her 40s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. She explained that Family Table was planning to open a new location in town and was looking for experienced local restaurant workers to join their management team. "I've been asking around about who the best restaurant employees in this area are," Linda said, "and your name came up multiple times. People remember good service, and they also remember when someone gets treated unfairly." Linda had done her research and knew about Maria's firing from the Golden Spoon, but instead of seeing it as a red flag, she viewed it as evidence of Maria's character and integrity. "The way I see it, Linda explained. "Someone who gets fired for helping hungry people is exactly the kind of person I want working for my company." The position Linda was offering was for an assistant manager trainee, with the possibility of being promoted to full manager within a year if everything went well. The salary was nearly double what Maria had been making as a waitress, and the benefits package included health insurance, paid vacation time, and tuition assistance for employees who wanted to continue their education. Maria could hardly believe what she was hearing. After weeks of rejection and financial stress, someone was not only offering her a job but a real career opportunity with room for growth. She accepted the position on the spot, and they agreed that she would start training at another family table location the following Monday. The training period was intense but exciting. Maria learned about inventory management, staff scheduling, customer service protocols, and financial reporting. She discovered that she had a natural aptitude for leadership and problem-solving that she had never had the chance to develop while working as a waitress. Her supervisors were impressed with her work ethic, her ability to connect with both customers and staff, and her creative solutions to operational challenges. After 6 weeks of training, Maria was ready to help open the new family table location. The restaurant was being built in a shopping center on the other side of town from the Golden Spoon, in an area that was experiencing new growth and development. The grand opening was scheduled for the first week of December, just in time for the holiday season. As the opening date approached, Maria threw herself into preparing for the launch. She helped interview and hire staff members, worked with the kitchen team to ensure food quality standards, and developed customer service training programs based on her years of front-of-house experience. Linda was so impressed with Maria's contributions that she accelerated her promotion timeline, officially making her the assistant manager before the restaurant even opened. The grand opening of Family Table was a huge success. The restaurant was packed from the first day, with customers praising the friendly service, quality food, and reasonable prices. Local food bloggers wrote positive reviews, and word spread quickly through social media about the new restaurant that was doing everything right. Maria's story became part of Family Table's local marketing, without her even realizing it. Linda had shared the story of hiring the waitress who got fired for doing the right thing with the corporate marketing team, and they loved the human interest angle. While they didn't use Maria's name in their advertising, they promoted the restaurant as a place where employees were valued and where kindness mattered. One busy Friday evening in December, Maria was working the floor when she noticed a familiar face among the waiting customers. It was Roberto, the man whose family she had helped at the Golden Spoon months earlier. He was dressed in clean work clothes and was accompanied by Carmen and their 2 children, who looked healthy and happy. When Roberto saw Maria in her manager's uniform, his face lit up with joy and amazement. He approached her with tears in his eyes and told her in his improved English that he couldn't believe she was managing her own restaurant now. Carmen hugged Maria tightly and whispered that she had been praying for good things to happen to the woman who had shown them such kindness. The family enjoyed their meal at Family Table, and Roberto insisted on speaking with Linda, who happened to be visiting that evening. In his passionate but limited English, Roberto told Linda the story of what Maria had done for his family during their time of need. He explained how her generosity had given them hope when they had almost given up, and how they would never forget her kindness. Linda listened with amazement, realizing that she had hired someone even more special than she had originally thought. After Roberto finished his story, she pulled Maria aside and told her that the company was considering opening a second location in the area, and that Maria would be the top candidate for general manager if she was interested. Meanwhile, across town at the Golden Spoon, things were going from bad to worse. The health department had conducted a surprise inspection and found several violations that resulted in a temporary closure for cleaning and repairs. 2 more employees had quit in the same week, leaving Frank desperately short-staffed. The local newspaper had run a small article about the health code violations, further damaging the diner's reputation. Jenny, who was now in her final semester of college, had given Frank her 2 weeks' notice. She had found a part-time job at the campus library that paid better and offered a more flexible schedule for her studies. Carlos was openly talking about looking for work elsewhere. Frustrated with Frank's continued penny-pinching and unwillingness to invest in proper equipment and ingredients, Frank was beginning to realize that his decision to fire Maria had been a costly mistake. The diner's revenue had dropped significantly since she left, and he was struggling to find and keep reliable employees. He had even swallowed his pride and tried to contact Maria to ask if she would consider coming back, but he couldn't find current contact information for her. What Frank didn't know was that Maria's success at Family Table was beginning to attract attention from other people in the local restaurant industry. Her reputation as a capable manager who genuinely cared about both employees and customers was spreading, and she was receiving inquiries about job opportunities from other establishments. But Maria was happy where she was. She enjoyed the challenge of her new role, appreciated the supportive company culture, and was finally earning enough money to provide Sophia with the opportunities she deserved. She had enrolled in online business courses through the company's education program and was working toward a degree in restaurant management. One evening, as Maria was closing the restaurant, she reflected on how much her life had changed in just a few months. The decision to help that hungry family had cost her a job she desperately needed, but it had also led to opportunities she never could have imagined. She was no longer just surviving paycheck to paycheck. She was building a career and a future for herself and her daughter. As she locked the doors of Family Table and walked to her car, Maria felt a sense of satisfaction and anticipation. She knew that her journey was far from over, and she had a feeling that the best was yet to come. The kindness she had shown to strangers was coming back to her in ways she never expected, proving that sometimes doing the right thing does pay off, even if it takes time for the rewards to appear. Number: the waitress who got fired for doing the right thing later took over as manager. Spring arrived with unexpected news that would complete Maria's incredible journey from fired waitress to successful manager. Linda Walsh called her into the office on a bright April morning with an expression that Maria couldn't quite read. After months of working together, Maria had learned to respect Linda's poker face during important conversations, but this time seemed different. "Maria, I have some interesting news," Linda began, settling into her chair across from Maria in the small office above the restaurant. "Corporate has been watching our numbers very closely, and they're extremely impressed with what we've accomplished here. Our customer satisfaction scores are among the highest in the region. Employee turnover is practically zero, and we're exceeding revenue projections by 15%. Maria felt a flush of pride but remained humble. "It's really been a team effort, Linda. We have amazing staff members who genuinely care about doing a good job." Linda smiled. "That's exactly the kind of response I expected from you. But don't sell yourself short. Your leadership has been the driving force behind this success." She paused for a moment before continuing. "Which brings me to the reason I asked you here. Corporate wants to promote you to general manager of a new flagship location they're opening. But that's not the most interesting part." Linda slid a folder across the desk toward Maria. "The location they want to open is going to be in the building that currently houses the Golden Spoon Diner. Frank Patterson has finally run his business into the ground, and the property owner has decided not to renew his lease. They're looking for a new tenant, and Family Table has made an offer." Maria's eyes widened as she processed this information. The Golden Spoon was going out of business, and she was being offered the chance to take over the very location where she had been fired for doing the right thing. It felt like something out of a movie, too perfect to be real. Over the past few months, Maria had heard through the grapevine that things at the Golden Spoon had continued to deteriorate. After Jenny left for graduation, Frank had struggled to find reliable employees. Carlos had finally quit after Frank had refused to fix a broken refrigerator that was causing food safety issues. The health department had conducted another inspection and found more violations, resulting in hefty fines that Frank couldn't afford to pay. The final blow had come when Detective Sarah Martinez and several other police officers had stopped eating at the diner after witnessing Frank verbally abuse a teenage employee who had made a mistake with an order. Word spread quickly among the local law enforcement community, and the Golden Spoon lost a significant portion of its regular customer base. Frank had tried desperately to save his business. He had attempted to hire Maria back, but by then she was already succeeding at Family Table and had no interest in returning to a toxic work environment. He had even considered selling the business, but his reputation in the community made it difficult to find serious buyers. So, Linda continued, bringing Maria's attention back to their conversation. The corporate executives want to know if you're interested in managing the flagship location. It would mean a significant salary increase, full benefits, profit sharing, and the opportunity to completely reimagine what that space could become. Maria was speechless for a moment. The irony of the situation was almost overwhelming. Less than a year ago, she had been fired from that very location for showing compassion to a hungry family. Now she was being offered the chance to return as the manager and transform the space into something positive for the community. There's one condition, Linda added with a mischievous smile. Corporate wants you to hire any of the former Golden Spoon employees who are interested in joining Family Table. They believe that good workers deserve second chances, and they want to make sure that Frank's poor management doesn't reflect badly on people who were just trying to do their jobs. The renovation of the old Golden Spoon building took 2 months. Maria worked closely with the corporate design team to create a space that would feel welcoming and inclusive. They kept some of the classic diner elements that customers loved, like the counter seating and booth arrangement, but updated everything with modern equipment, comfortable furnishings, and bright, cheerful colors. During the renovation period, Maria reached out to her former co-workers. Carlos was thrilled to learn about the opportunity and eagerly accepted a position as head chef. Tommy, the former dishwasher, had graduated high school and was working at a fast food chain. He jumped at the chance to join the Family Table team as a kitchen assistant, with opportunities for advancement. Even Mrs. Henderson, the elderly customer who had been a regular at the Golden Spoon for decades, stopped by during construction to wish Maria well. "I always knew you were special, dear," she said, patting Maria's arm. "I'm so proud to see how far you've come." The grand opening of the new Family Table location was scheduled for a Saturday in early July. Maria had spent weeks preparing for the event, working with her team to ensure that everything would run smoothly. She had also arranged for a local food bank to be present during the grand opening, accepting donations and raising awareness about hunger in the community. The night before the opening, Maria brought Sophia to see the finished restaurant. Her daughter, now 9 years old, had watched her mother's journey with the wisdom that children sometimes possess. She walked through the dining room with wonder, touching the new tables and chairs and looking at the photos of the local community that decorated the walls. "Mama," Sophia said quietly, "is this the place where you used to work? The place where you helped that family?" Maria nodded, feeling emotional as she looked around the transformed space. "Yes, Mija. This is where it all started." Sophia considered this for a moment, then said, "I'm glad you helped them, even though it was hard. It made everything else happen, didn't it?" The wisdom of her daughter's observation struck Maria deeply. That single act of kindness, which had seemed to cost her everything at the time, had indeed set in motion a chain of events that led to opportunities she never could have imagined. The grand opening was a tremendous success. The restaurant was packed from the moment they opened the doors, with customers eager to experience the new Family Table location. Many were former Golden Spoon customers who had been waiting to see what would replace their old neighborhood diner. During the busy lunch rush, Maria noticed a familiar family walking through the front door. Roberto and Carmen, along with Miguel and Ana, had dressed in their best clothes to visit the restaurant. Roberto had been promoted to supervisor at his construction job and was doing well for his family. When he saw Maria in her manager's uniform, greeting customers and overseeing operations, he approached her with tears of joy in his eyes. "You remember us?" Carmen asked in much improved English, having taken classes at the local community center. "Of course I remember you," Maria replied, embracing them warmly. "You're the reason all of this happened." Roberto shook his head vigorously. No. You are the reason. Your kindness changed our lives, but it also changed yours. This is how the world should work. Good people helping good people." As the family enjoyed their meal, Maria reflected on the truth of Roberto's words. The Golden Spoon had closed its doors forever just 1 week before Family Table's grand opening. Frank Patterson had declared bankruptcy and left town. But Maria felt no satisfaction in his downfall. Instead, She felt grateful for the lessons his poor leadership had taught her about the importance of treating people with dignity and respect. Linda, who had been promoted to regional manager after the success of the first family table location, stopped by during the dinner rush. She watched Maria effortlessly coordinate between the kitchen and dining room, solve a minor problem with a food order, and still find time to personally greet regular customers who had followed her from the original location. "You know," Linda said during a quiet moment, "corporate is already talking about opening more locations in this region. They want to replicate what you've built here." Maria smiled but shook her head. "This location is special because of our team and our community. Each new restaurant needs to find its own identity, while maintaining our core values of treating people right." As the evening wound down, and the last customers finished their meals, Maria stood in the kitchen with Carlos and Tommy, reflecting on the day's success. Carlos had prepared over 200 meals without a single complaint, and Tommy had shown remarkable improvement in his skills and confidence. "You know what the best part of today was?" Carlos said, wiping down his station. "Seeing Mrs. Henderson cry when she tasted my apple pie again. She told me she missed my cooking." Tommy, who had always been quiet and shy, spoke up with unusual confidence. "I like that we get to help people here. When that family with the little kids couldn't decide what to order, Maria helped them find meals that fit their budget. That's how it should be." 3 months after the grand opening, Maria received recognition that meant more to her than any corporate award. The local newspaper ran a feature story about her journey from fired waitress to successful restaurant manager, focusing on how one act of kindness had created ripple effects throughout the community. The article mentioned that several former Golden Spoon employees had found better jobs, partly due to the positive references Maria had provided. It also highlighted Family Table's community involvement, including their monthly donations to the food bank and their practice of offering free meals to families in need during the holidays. Detective Sarah Martinez, who had become a regular customer at the new location, was quoted in the article saying, "Maria Santos proves that doing the right thing might cost you in the short term, but it always pays off in the long run. She's made our whole community better." 1 year after taking over as manager, Maria stood in her restaurant on a quiet Sunday morning, preparing for the day ahead. Sophia was at the counter doing homework, occasionally looking up to help fold napkins or organize menus. The morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the photos of community events and happy customers that decorated the walls. As she reviewed the day's schedule and checked inventory levels, Maria thought about how different her life was now compared to that difficult night when she had made the decision to help a hungry family. She was no longer living paycheck to paycheck, worried about rent and bills. Sophia was thriving in school and had even started taking piano lessons with the money Maria could now afford to spend on enrichment activities. But more than the financial stability, Maria valued the sense of purpose she had found in her work. Every day brought opportunities to make positive impacts in people's lives, whether by providing a job to someone who needed it, creating a welcoming space for families to gather, or simply treating every customer with dignity and respect. The story of Maria Santos had become something of a local legend, proving that sometimes the most difficult moments in our lives can lead to the most beautiful outcomes. Her journey from a fired waitress to a successful manager who transformed a failed business into a community cornerstone showed that kindness, integrity, and perseverance could indeed change not just individual lives, but entire communities. As the first customers of the day began arriving for breakfast, Maria straightened her manager's badge and smiled. She had learned that doing the right thing doesn't always bring immediate rewards, but it always brings something more valuable: the knowledge that you've stayed true to your values and made the world a little bit better for someone else. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that kindness comes back to you in ways you never could have imagined.